Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining from. It's so nice to meet you all. My name is Georgina, as Veronica shared, and I am joining you all from Amman, Jordan, in the Middle East today. So I'm very excited to be joining you across time zones to share some ideas on how we can support leaders to thrive in the sticky stuff. So my lovely co-host Veronica is going to support me with the slide deck. And I will ask her if that's okay to share that now. And then at the end, I will also share the presentation deck with all of you joining so that you can also take advantage of all of the links and shares that are inside of that as well. Please feel free, as Veronica said, to drop any questions that you have inside the chat. Please also feel free to share your Twitter handles or any social media icons so that we can keep the conversation going at the end. That would be super wonderful to continue the connection and continue to learn and grow together. Good morning to Juan and to Hiba, or good afternoon, etc. And thank you all for joining. So on slide 2, there's a little bit of information about myself. I'm currently working as the Director of Learning Technology at a K-12 international school here in Amman, Jordan, where I'm supporting the school with their digital transformation. I do teach a couple of hours of creative media, as all the leaders at my school, including the heads, all teach a couple of hours. We believe it's really important as part of our vision that we are all teaching on the front line and supporting the vision and the mission. So it's one of my very first takeaways to share with all of you that it's really important as a leader, and we'll see throughout the presentation that everybody is leaders, even if you're a classroom teacher, to make sure that we're all supporting the front lines for sure. Welcome to Simone from Yellowknife in Canada. That's so cool. Well, it's so great to meet you. Slide 2, please, Veronica. Thank you. So yes, there's more information about me there. Just time is really short, but once you get a hold of this presentation deck, you will be able to click on all of the little icons to find all sorts of spaces where you can connect with me after, including global educator groups, Twitter, LinkedIn. We just have a new podcast we started. So all of those little icons you see on the screen will take you to places you can connect with me after. Next slide, please. Thank you, Veronica. Today, we're going to explore 3 different things as leaders. What is the new norm? What is that all about? What is silver lining we can take away to support our education communities? And how, finally, do we make the good stuff stick? How do we thrive in the sticky stuff? Next slide, please. So I'd love to hear from all of you. If you could please it's kind of like a poll, but we're going to do it just in chat if that's okay. It'll be the easiest with time. So how ready do you guys feel, whether you're supporting your teams as a middle leader, as a senior leader, whether you're supporting your students as a classroom teacher, how ready do you feel supporting them on a scale of 1 to 5 in the new normal? Do you feel that you are thriving and ready to go beyond the now? Or do you feel that you're still in survival mode? So I see some numbers coming in, some 3s, some 2s, a couple of 4s. That's really positive. Nice. More 3s. Thank you so much for participating. That's super great. And very interesting. Tom mentions 3 for school and 1 for me. So really nice to see that differentiation there. Thank you for sharing. Lovely to see all the comments come in. And very interesting, I don't actually see any 5s. So congratulations to all of you guys for doing an amazing job at navigating a very challenging year. When you receive the slide deck that we'll share at the end, there are links in the image to the right. So this is a Google slide deck, and all of the images are embedded with links for resources to support you on your journey. There are 2 links in this image. One is to the headteacherchat.com Twitter profile. It's where a lot of leaders are sharing some really great and inspiring strategies, tools, and just a place to support each other in this current space. So please connect there. And the other one, I'm sure is no new leader to anybody, is Simon Sinek. And it is a tweet that they shared out earlier this morning. Simon Sinek is one of my very inspiring leaders that I follow. And the quote there says, "Always plan for the fact that no plan ever goes according to plan. So I'm sure you guys would all agree that things are always constantly changing, and therefore we always have to be ready with a backup. Today, for example, joined the session, my screen share worked immediately, and then a couple minutes later, it stopped working. So Veronica and I, we were like, no problem. Veronica's rolling the deck for me, and we have to be able to adapt really quickly. And this is what life is like in education in 2021. Next slide, please. So there is a video here. Veronica and I don't believe you're going to be able to hear sound, but Simon Sinek in the first minute, 30 seconds talks about the new normal and talks about how he believes, and after doing a lot of research, obviously, that we actually are not going to ever be able to go back to the new normal, that actually what we will go back to will be something that is abnormal, something that is totally new. It's a little 5-minute video I encourage you all to watch, and he compares it to World War II. And just like after World War II happened, what happened next? It was absolutely brand new. Great to see Angela sharing that she also shares Simon Sinek, very influential. Yeah, my pleasure. And please feel free. We're here to support and grow together. So feel free to drop in your most inspirational leaders into the chat so we can all continue to learn and grow. Would you like to go to next slide, please, Veronica? Thank you. And the next one. So let's dive into the new normal. The new normal means what? Means that we have all been exploring and discovering new things because we're forced in very challenging times to have to adapt and have to find new strategies and new means to achieve things in new, creative, innovative ways. So please share in the chat your top, or share more than one if you like, ways that we can celebrate remote learning. What were we able to take away, and what has come out really, really positive? So go ahead, please, and just share an idea or two in the chat so we can see. It's always really, really important to celebrate everything, even the challenging times, because as you all know, as education leaders, that is where the learning happens, is when we get stuck, right? And this session is all about getting through the sticky stuff. Okay. Juan saying teachers supporting each other. Love that. So collaboration. Karina shares very young students managing technology. Absolutely. Those young learners, hats off to them. Complete immersion in technology. Edith says teachers talk all the time to help each other. Louisa says all students have a chance to participate using technology. Excellent. Equity being really important. More online resources. I love that, Diana. Diana says more parent involvement, which is going to be one of the takeaways from today's session as well. Estella says being flexible and resilient. And Maria Carmen, I apologize if I'm not getting any names correct, but hopefully I'm close. Students not distracting each other as though they're not in the classroom. So it's a different environment, a different setup. So thank you for sharing those. And again, congratulations to all of you for achieving these wonderful celebrations. So part of the thing when we look at remembering the sticky stuff is, where were we, where are we now, and where are we going, and what do we take along that journey with us? Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I'm not going to read through this slide. This just breaks down the different types of learning environments that now exist in the new normal. We had traditional in-person teaching from way ago, decades ago, and we now have 21st century blended learning. But through COVID and through this new normal has come the element of time. Time allowing us now to have synchronous experiences and asynchronous experiences. And it's created space. And space inside that time, how are we utilizing the tools that we have, right? And we talked about that. You may have read my session introduction, which was the tools are going to come and go, but what stays the same? We stay the same. Teachers stay the same. Leaders, students, I say stay the same as in education exists because we have teachers, students, leaders, learners, parents, etc. But what's going to change all the time will be the tools, because technology is constantly changing and adapting. So we almost have to join that pathway to make sure we're adapting along the way, but we have to make sure that we're holding on to the crux of education, which is Student centricity, we're all here for our learners, right? And this is the core. So the spaces and the tools is basically a mix, regardless of whether you're in person, if you're online, or if you're in blended learning. How are we going to hold on to that student centricity with being able to dive in and explore and empower through our different tools? Okay, next slide, please. The silver lining. So we shared already some of the celebrations. Next slide, please. What we're going to think about now is, what are the questions that leaders are starting to ask? So you all shared earlier in the presentation that many of you are starting to really survive well and moving on towards thriving. What questions do you have still? What questions are you asking as a leader? What is on the table? What are we trying to solve together to support the new education ecosystem? So please share in the chat what questions you have as a leader, whether you're a middle leader, a senior leader, or as an educator, because if you are an educator, you are leading all of the learners in your classroom. So please share in the chat what questions you think that leaders are asking right now, and why are those questions important? It's interesting, sometimes as we think towards the future and think beyond the current now, we don't always have the questions also on the ready. We don't always know what should we be asking. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate that some students don't even know what kinds of questions to ask, right? That is a skill we're constantly helping learners to build, is that inquisitive problem solving. Okay, Karina says, how can we support students that are missing social interactions as part of their development? Very important. Edith asks, how is it going to be when we get back? Absolutely. What does the return look like? Jessica's asking, when do we draw the line between flexible and challenging our students? I like that one. And that's always a bit of give and take, right? How far can we push? I like that. Kate's asking, how do we keep the moods of our team pushing towards optimism rather than pessimism? Absolutely, very challenging, and SEL is so important right now. Adriana asks, how can we guide, inspire, and transform our team in the new challenge? Love it. Monica, how are my teachers feeling? Are they ready for any change? Absolutely. And you know, and we're going to talk about relationships in just a little bit here, but like, we need to know, and will we always know? Is it easy to know how people are feeling in a virtual setting, right? So many important questions. Obviously, in a short 30-minute session, I don't have a chance to celebrate everybody who's shared, but thank you so much. And please read each other's questions, as they're all very important. Next slide, please. These are some of the main ones that are coming out in some communities that I'm participating in as an education leader. How should we return in person, which also came into the chat, whether it's online, hybrid, or an in-person model? What do these strategies look like, and how could they work for our community? Because guess what? A strategy that's working for myself and my community here in Jordan may not necessarily meet the needs of the community in Mexico or the community in the UK. So how are we being flexible with those strategies? And then the third one, which also came up in the chat, how can we still ensure high quality, authentic, and meaningful learning experiences no matter the environment? So these are questions that I want to leave with you today, as many of you have already come up with. These should be the main questions that we are asking as leaders. It's not necessarily, can we use this tool? Can we use this tool? I'm going to throw out there a couple as examples, not for any particular reason. You know, should we use Pear Deck? Should we use Nearpod? Should we use Google Slides? These are all digital tools, right, to support the exchange of content and creation between educators and students. That's not what's important, because that's what's coming and going. What's important is, how are we preparing the community? How are we ensuring that our student-centric approach and strategic development is meeting the needs of learners in authentic, meaningful ways? Okay, next slide, please. All right, what skills do we need, guys? This one should be pretty quick. Go ahead and list some of your top skills that you think our learners, our students, will need when they graduate from our schools? What skills are they going to need? Resilience, flexibility, love that, keep those coming. And then the next part of the question is the skills that you're all listing, love the empathy in there, really well done. Creativity, good job. Critical thinking, compassion. You guys are awesome. I guess they didn't need me here, Veronica. They're already superstars. Do you see that? I love it.
Yes, it's amazing, all the responses here.
Yeah, they're doing awesome. So my next part of the question is, these skills that you guys have listed now in the chat, are these only for learners, or are those skills also what educators need? Are those skills also what leaders need to continue to be developing to support the community, to support the progression, etc.? Do you think it's a mix? Do you think all? Do you think they're only towards the students that are going to need them? Great. So Edith says, everyone, awesome. Skills are needed for everyone. Excellent. So I think everybody is in agreement. Adriana says maybe it's a little bit of a mix. Absolutely. Maybe students aren't in need of all of them. Maybe educators aren't in need, etc. It could be a balance. But the idea here is that you want to make an enabling environment where everybody has a chance to build the skills they need to thrive in their space. So learners are thriving in their learning space. Educators are thriving in their teaching space, and leaders are thriving in their leading space. And how do we make that happen? Next slide, please. All right. So again, as I said before, guys, these images, they all have links embedded inside the images so that you will be able to click on them and read research and articles that are based on this presentation, so that the presentation is based on, sorry. So when you get the slide deck, please feel free to click on the links or to check the speaker notes, and the links are also there. These are what we call the 6 C's. Let me know in the chat if you've heard of the 6 C's before. They used to be called the 4 C's of 21st century learning, and they are now evolving into the 6 C's. And actually, I read an article just the other week that said the 7 C. So there's a 7th one, a lot of yeses in the chat, awesome. So what we're taking here is we're taking those 6 C's and we're matching them against employability. This is what we need to build. This is what we need to nurture and foster in a thriving environment. So please, 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 if you have the chance to read this article that's attached to this image, please do so. But all of the qualities that you guys had mentioned in the chat, guess where they are? They're right here on the left side of this image. We need to make sure that we are creating a space in our education communities that consists of this. Next slide, please. That's great, Veronica. Thank you. That might have taken you to the link, Veronica. Do you want to just go back to the Google slide on the left tab there? Thank you.
Let me stop sharing and try it again to go back.
Sure, no problem. The slide that Veronica is going to share next, guys, is a little sketch note. I'm a big fan of sketchnoting. I'm currently learning to develop my illustration skills, and how can we basically empower, how can we support visual learning across K-12 curriculum through the use of sketchnoting and art and different ways like this. And so here is another article that's embedded in this image here for the 6 C's, but it gives you this visual effect. And what I wanted to hone in a little bit on was creativity. You'll see there that someone is thinking about imagination. And Simon Sinek talked about this in his little video. He talked about us coming back to something that's abnormal. So what is it going to take? It's going to take all of us as a team to reimagine education. What might it look like? How could we make things that weren't working before work? And how can we take the silver lining and make it work in the going beyond? Next slide, please. So the silver lining is taking what we've discovered and unpacked during the remote distance COVID learning experience and matching it with what we know at the heart inside of our education and coming up with something brand new. Next slide, please. How do we make it stick? Okay, next slide, please. I feel bad, poor Veronica. I would have navigated myself, but I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, guys, the idea of storytelling is not just for our learners. The idea of storytelling is for leaders as well. When I just came to join you today for this session, I'm coming with a slide deck. Yes, I have some nice pictures. Yes, I have some really great links and videos to share with you, but I'm not reading from my slide. I'm talking from my heart because I have a very big passion towards thriving education and how we can innovate creatively. You need to think about that as a leader. And again, leaders are educators, middle leaders, senior leaders, we're all leaders. So we need to think about that. When we're sharing and we are encouraging creation and innovation, it should be with a story. So it's just that idea of storytelling to keep it in mind. And of course, we want to keep the idea of the candle curiosity burning across your community, not just vertically across your school, but also with all stakeholders in your organization. So how can we invoke curiosity? How do we keep that candle burning? So there's articles linked into those images. So please make sure you take a look at those to support students with self-paced learning, with autonomy, with creative innovation and critical thinking and problem solving. Next slide, please. I'm just conscientious of time, so I'm going to go through the next slides a little bit quicker, but things to consider with the sticky stuff. So the sticky stuff is our student centricity at the center. So how do we ensure that the sticky stuff sticks while we have all of this new reimagination we're doing in education? You want to make sure, point number one, that you include all stakeholders when you are reviewing your strategic planning and your development. Every phase of the project, throw out a Google survey and ask for feedback from your educators, from your parents, and guess what? From your students as well. So my first tip is to have different focus groups set up around your school where you can actually take feedback from everybody. If we want to know if our students are happy, we know that they need to be happy to learn, then let's ask them. Let's hear from them. Make sure your focus groups are obviously the word I'm looking for, obviously equitable, and make sure that they're vertically and horizontally across so you have a good mix of everybody. The second one is flipped classrooms. I wanted to bring that up because guess what, guys? Flipped classrooms is not just for learners. When I give staff training at my school, I flip the learning. I provide them with some video content and a Jamboard to say, hey, go check this out. Now go share what you're doing or what you think might be useful to take away to teach in your classroom or to use as strategies. It can be used as staff development and not just for the classroom. So leaders, keep that in mind. When you're going to have a staff or a team meeting, are you flipping it? Do you share the data with them ahead? Do you share plans with them ahead? And do you ask them to think about it and reflect to come to your staff meeting ready to participate? Okay, so keep that in mind. Authentic and alternative assessments is a really important one. We need to assess learning. We need to know if students are making progress, but do we need to give standardized tests? Do they need to write exams? The answer is no. They can absolutely do things like creativity journals. They can do interviews. They can create videos. They can do project-based learning that shows at different stages of their learning towards a base that they're able to harness their learning goals. Explore, discover, be curious. Obviously, this is a Live Curious conference. And so that whole idea of making sure curiosity exists, it starts, and that you keep it burning. Make sure that your spaces are creative. It doesn't have to be in an office or a classroom. Make sure you're enjoying nature and getting out there. Go ahead, Veronica. That was a great, Veronica's trying to push me because she gave me a 5-minute warning. So I'm going to take her lead. Thank you, Veronica.
Sorry about that.
No, don't be sorry. It's good. Top 10 tips to thrive in the sticky. Guess what, guys? All of the words that are underlined have, that's right, links for articles and research that will support you with these points. With 4 minutes left, I don't have a lot of time to go into all of them, but you should be able to see some things that will support you in there. Well-being is at the top, and balancing of priorities are two key things. But the third point, which is empower your leaders, is something I want to talk about. If you want to have teams of different criteria, different goals around your school, create not just focus groups for feedback, but teams of leaders. So at my school, I've empowered a team of digital leader teachers across the school vertically that get together and provide support on digital transformation. We have a well-being coordinator at our school who makes sure that the well-being is taken care of for staff and students, and they have a team for that. So make sure that it's your staff that's empowered and are leading the way forward to make sure that your culture is there, to make sure that you guys are thriving. And there's a bunch of other stuff in there. The parent community is key, so there's some great resources in there. Veronica is going to share the presentation on the website, but I am going to pop it in here as well. There is the bit.ly link for you. Next slide, please, Veronica. And if you guys have any questions in these last 3 minutes, please, now is the time to list them in the chat. And I probably will have 2 minutes left because this is my second last slide to answer any questions. So guess what, guys? You're all here, you're all heroes. And if you're watching this video session at the end or synchronously after the fact or later, you know, thank you for everything you're doing in education right now. In an extremely difficult time in education, I'm so proud of you. Teachers are so proud of you. People at this conference are proud of you, and parents around the world are appreciative of everything you're doing to support children learning through immaculately difficult times. So thank you. So this is my hero slide, guys. So take your hand, give yourself a pat on the back, give your neighbor a high five virtually. Since we're in a Zoom room, we can do that with the images next to us. And I really want to thank you so much for everything you guys are doing. Yes, the link, I added it just here. Let me paste it again. Veronica, is that link going to everybody okay? My bit.ly link?
Yes, well, I see it in the chat for everyone.
It says it's not though.
No.
Hold on 1 second. Let me try. Oh, everyone in the meeting. 1 second, guys. Okay, does that one work? I think I sent it to everyone in the waiting room. Sorry,
yes,
guys.
there is no waiting room. Yes, sorry.
Sorry about that. No, that's perfect. So are there any questions? I hope that that's inspired some new ideas of how you can support leaders as leaders at your school and also your education community. Click on everything. Everything's embedded with links to support you guys on your journey. I don't see any questions, but let me know.